The severance rite was where you went when your pack no longer wanted you. And as Selene stood before the entire gathering of Thornhaven, her former alpha's voice rang out like a death sentence. Worthless, Ronan declared, void-marked, cursed. The crowd murmured their agreement. 3 years ago, she had been his betrothed. 3 years ago, the mating bond had shattered during their ceremony in front of everyone. And Ronan had made certain the entire territory knew who was to blame. Selene kept her eyes fixed on the ground. She knew what came next. Exile, servitude, perhaps worse. Her hands trembled at her sides, but she refused to let them see her break. Then the great doors exploded open. Every voice died, every head turned. And the presence that rolled through the hall was unlike anything Selene had ever felt. This was not the dominance of a pack alpha. This was the power of a king. Alpha King Kaelin of Valdrin walked into Thornhaven as if the territory already belonged to him. Pale eyes swept the room, cold and absolute. He passed Ronan without acknowledgement, past the elders and nobles and warriors, and stopped directly in front of Selene. "I will take this one," he said, "as my Luna." The hall erupted into chaos, but Selene barely heard it. She was staring at the king who had just claimed the most worthless wolf in the territory. And when his eyes met hers, she saw something that chilled her more than his words. He meant it. But he made one thing clear before the night was over. He would give her his name, his protection, his throne. He would never give her his heart. Neither of them understood how impossible that promise would become. The great hall of Thornhaven had seen ceremonies of honor, treaties of war, and celebrations of victory. Tonight, it held a severance rite. Selene stood at the edge of the raised platform where the condemned were displayed. To her left, an older woman wept silently, her mate having died in a border skirmish 6 months prior. Unmated widows disturbed pack hierarchy. To her right, a young wolf with a shattered leg that had never healed properly stared at nothing. Weakness was not tolerated in Thornhaven, but Selene drew the most attention. She was not old. She was not visibly broken. By all appearances, she should have been mated years ago, should have been raising pups in a comfortable den, and should have been anything other than standing here among the discarded. The whispers had started the moment she climbed onto the platform. "That is the one, is it not? The void marked. I heard the bond shattered during the ceremony itself. Can you imagine the shame? Some say she did it deliberately. Rejected him on purpose." Selene felt every word like a blade between her ribs. 3 years of this. 3 years of whispers and stares and doors closed in her face. 3 years of being the cautionary tale mothers told their daughters. Do not end up like Selene Ashford. She had everything and threw it away. They did not know the truth. They never asked. Alpha Ronan Blackwood stood at the center of the hall, magnificent in his formal leathers, his dark hair swept back from a face that had once made her heart race. Now it made her stomach turn. "We gather tonight to sever those who no longer serve the pack," Ronan announced, his voice carrying to every corner. "Those whose presence disrupts our bonds, those whose weakness endangers our strength." His eyes found Selene. Satisfaction crossed his features, or perhaps anticipation. "Selene Ashford," he called. "Step forward." Her legs felt like stone, but she forced them to move. The crowd parted as she descended from the platform and walked toward her former betrothed. She could smell the hostility in the air, the eagerness for spectacle. 3 years ago, Ronan said, addressing the crowd while his eyes remained fixed on her, "This woman stood beside me at the mating altar. And when the bond was meant to form between us, it shattered." Gasps rippled through the hall. They all knew the story, but hearing it spoken aloud by the Alpha himself gave it fresh power. "She bears the void mark," Ronan continued, "the sign of one rejected by the bond itself. The sign of one who cannot be claimed, cannot be trusted, cannot contribute to the strength of any pack." Selene's hands clenched at her sides. The mark burned between her shoulder blades as if responding to his words. She had never seen it herself, could only feel it, but she knew what it looked like. A spiral of scarred tissue where the failed bond had literally burned her from within. She is worthless, Ronan declared, and tonight, Thornhaven severs all ties to her. The crowd roared its approval. Selene closed her eyes. This was it. After tonight, she would be packless, alone, vulnerable to any wolf who wanted to claim her as property, as prey, as entertainment. Rogues did not survive long in these territories. I move that she be remanded to the border camps, one of the elders called out. The soldiers always need someone to warm their beds. Laughter. Cruel, hungry laughter. Or sell her to the eastern traders, another suggested. Void-marked wolves fetch a good price in the fighting pits. Solene's wolf stirred inside her, weak and wounded but still alive, still angry. I will decide her fate, Ronan said, holding up one hand for silence. As Alpha, the choice is mine. He stepped closer to Selene, close enough that she could smell him, cedar and dominance, and something rotten underneath that only she had ever noticed. Look at me, he commanded. Selene raised her eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. Memory. The night of their failed bonding, when the truth had nearly surfaced before he buried it. The threats he had made in private. The promises that if she ever spoke of what she knew, her family would suffer. You should have been mine, Ronan said softly, for her ears only. But since you could not give me that, you will give me this. Your humiliation, your destruction, and your silence. Forever. Selene said nothing. Ronan smiled and turned back to the crowd. I have decided, he announced. Selene Ashford will be sent to the northern mines. Let her spend her remaining years digging ore in the dark. Let her remember what she could have had. The northern mines. A death sentence dressed as mercy. No one survived more than a few years in those frozen tunnels. Selene felt the last of her hope crumble to dust, and then the doors burst open. Every voice cut off mid-word. Every head snapped toward the entrance. And Selene felt something she had never experienced in her entire life. True power. It rolled through the hall like a physical wave, pressing against her chest, making her wolf drop to its belly in instinctive submission. This was not the dominance of an alpha. This was something ancient, something absolute, and something that turned every other wolf in the room into a pup by comparison. Alpha King Kaelin of Valdrin stood in the doorway. Selene had never seen him in person, only heard stories. The king who ruled all territories, the alpha whose bloodline stretched back to the first wolves, the man who was said to be more stone than flesh, more weapon than wolf. The stories had not prepared her. He was tall, taller than any wolf she had ever seen, with shoulders that blocked the torchlight behind him. His hair was silver white, not from age but from his bloodline, falling straight to his jaw. His face was carved from granite, beautiful and terrible, with eyes the color of a winter sky. Those eyes swept the hall and dismissed everyone in it. Ronan Blackwood, the king said. His voice was quiet, but it silenced every whisper. I require something from your pack. Ronan had gone pale. He dropped into a bow, deeper than Selene had ever seen him bow to anyone. Your Majesty, Ronan stammered, we are honored beyond words. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared a proper welcome. Whatever you require is yours. Name it. The king ignored him completely. He was walking forward, his pace unhurried, his gaze moving across the platform where the condemned still stood. Past the weeping widow. Past the wolf with the shattered leg. His attention settled and stopped. On Selene. She could not breathe. She could not move. She could not understand why the most powerful wolf in existence was looking at her as if she were the only person in the room. The king stopped directly in front of her. Up close, she noticed things the stories never mentioned. His skin was pale, almost colorless. His scent was muted, barely there, like winter wind over snow. And his eyes, when they met hers, held nothing. No warmth, no curiosity, no cruelty. Just cold, absolute emptiness. This one, he said. I will take her as my Luna. Silence. A hush so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. And then Thornhaven erupted into chaos. Through the small window of the carriage, Selene watched Thornhaven disappear behind the hills. She still could not believe this was happening. The chaos after the king's announcement had been a blur. Ronan's face, white with shock and fury. The elders shouting over each other. The crowd pressing forward, trying to understand how their void-marked outcast had just become the future queen of all territories. And through all of it, King Kalen had stood like a statue carved from ice, unmoved, uninterested. My choice is made, he had said, cutting through the noise. She comes with me tonight. No one had dared to argue further. Now Selene sat in a carriage more luxurious than any room she had ever slept in, wearing the same worn dress she had been condemned in, watching her old life fade into the darkness. Relief warred with terror in her chest. She was not going to the mines. She was not going to be sold or enslaved or worked to death, but she was going to Valdrin, to become Luna to a king who had barely spoken 3 sentences to her. The carriage rocked gently as it climbed the mountain roads. Hours passed. Selene did not sleep. She could not. When dawn broke, she saw the fortress. Valdrin Castle rose from the mountainside as if it had grown there, all dark stone and sharp towers piercing a pale sky. It was impossibly large, impossibly grand, and impossibly cold. No banners flew from the walls. No smoke rose from the chimneys. It looked like a beautiful tomb. This is madness, Selene thought. Why would he choose me? Why would anyone? The carriage stopped before massive iron gates that swung open without a single guard in sight. They continued up a winding path until the carriage halted before the main entrance. A guard opened the door and offered his hand. Selene took it with trembling fingers and stepped down onto smooth stone. The wind at this altitude cut through her thin dress like knives. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. "Follow me, my lady," the guard said. "The king will see you in his study." My lady. The words felt wrong on her skin. She followed the guard through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The castle was as cold inside as it looked from outside. No fires burned in the hearths they passed. No servants bustled about. The quiet was absolute. Finally, they stopped before a heavy oak door. "The king awaits," the guard said, and withdrew. Selene stood alone, her pulse jumping. She raised her hand, hesitated, then knocked. "Enter." She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The study was vast, lined with books from floor to ceiling, maps and documents scattered across a broad desk. A fire burned low in the hearth, but even from across the room, Selene could feel that it gave off no warmth. And standing by the window, backlit by gray morning light, was King Kalen. He had changed from his traveling clothes into a simple white shirt and dark trousers. It should have made him seem more approachable. Instead, it only emphasized the predatory stillness of his body, the unnatural paleness of his skin. When he turned to look at her, Selene felt the cold radiating from him like a physical force, as if winter itself lived in his bones. She dropped into a curtsy, her legs unsteady. "Your Majesty." "Rise," he said. She straightened. Through her lashes, she studied him. The hard line of his jaw. The eyes that seemed to look through her rather than at her. There was no warmth there, no curiosity, nothing. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice barely steady. "I need to tell you something before we go any further, about what I am. About why Ronan called me worthless." "I know what you are." Selene blinked. "You do?" "Void-marked, bond-shattered, rejected by your pack." He listed the words without inflection, as if reading from a document. "I was informed before I arrived at Thornhaven." "Then why?" Selene whispered. "Why would you choose me?" A muscle twitched in his jaw, gone before she could examine it. "Because you are exactly what I need," he said. "A Luna who cannot form a true bond. A wife who will never expect more than the arrangement provides." Selene stared at him. "I do not understand." Kaelin turned fully toward her, his pale eyes fixed on her face. "I will be clear," he said. "You will be my Luna in name. You will stand at my side for public functions. You will bear my heirs to secure the succession. Beyond that, we will share nothing. No quarters, no meals, no life. You will live comfortably. You will want for nothing material. But I will never claim you fully. I will never mark you. And I will never love you." The words should have hurt. Instead, Solène felt something unexpected. Relief. He was not like Ronan. Ronan had wanted to own her, possess her, and control her. This king wanted nothing from her except her presence. Her name beside his. That was safety. That was mercy. "I understand," she said quietly. Kaelin studied her. Confusion stirred behind his expression. "You accept these terms?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "Without negotiation? Without protest?" "What would I negotiate for?" Solène asked. "A week ago, I was about to be sent to the mines to die. Now I am being offered protection, safety, a life where no one will call me worthless again." She met his gaze steadily. "Cold indifference is more kindness than I have known in 3 years." The king went very still. For a long moment, he simply looked at her. And for the first time, Solène saw something beneath the ice. A crack, a question. But it vanished before she could understand it. "Very well," Kaelin said, turning back to the window. "The binding ceremony will take place in 3 days. My staff will see to your needs until then." He was dismissing her. Solène turned to leave, then paused. There was something she needed to know. Something she could not ignore. "Your Majesty," she said carefully. "When you touched my hand to help me into the carriage, I noticed something." Kaelin did not turn around. "And what was that?" "You are cold. Not cool, as wolves sometimes are after a long run. Genuinely cold. Like you have been standing in snow for hours." A long pause stretched between them. "We wolves run hot," Solène continued. "Especially alphas, especially kings. But you feel like winter." When Kaelin spoke, his voice was flat. "It is a family condition." His tone made it clear the conversation was over. But as Solène left the study, her mind would not stop turning. He had called her exactly what he needed. A wolf who could not bond. A Luna who would never expect love. But what did that mean? What was he hiding beneath all that ice? And why did she feel, with absolute certainty, that the Alpha King of Valdrin was just as broken as she was? The binding ceremony was held in the great hall of Valdrin Castle. Solène had barely slept in the 3 days since her arrival. The chambers they had given her were larger than any space she had ever occupied. A bed draped in furs, a fireplace that burned constantly, though she suspected it was for her benefit rather than any warmth the king might need. Servants who treated her with quiet respect, who brought her food she was too nervous to eat, who dressed her in fabrics softer than anything she had ever touched. No one sneered at her. No one called her worthless. It was disorienting. Like walking in a dream she kept expecting to shatter. Now, dressed in a gown of deep blue that made her feel like someone else entirely, Solène walked into the great hall for the ceremony that would make her Luna. The hall was smaller than she expected. No crowd of thousands, no nobility jostling for position. Just the king's advisors, a handful of high-ranking wolves from allied packs, and one representative from Thornhaven. Dread pooled in Solène's stomach when she saw who Ronan had sent. Marin Whitmore stood near the back of the hall, dressed in traveling leathers, her honey-colored hair swept back from a face that had once pretended friendship. They had grown up together. They had trained together. And on the night of Solène's failed bonding ceremony, Marin had been the first to call her cursed. Their eyes met across the room. Marin smiled. It did not reach her eyes. Solène forced herself to look away, to focus on the altar at the front of the hall where King Kaelin waited. He wore black, as always. It emphasized the silver of his hair, the pale ice of his eyes. He looked like something carved from winter itself. beautiful and terrible, and utterly unreachable. She walked toward him, acutely aware of every gaze following her progress, the advisors watching with barely concealed curiosity, Marin watching with something far more dangerous. When she reached the altar, Kalen extended his hand. His skin was cold against her fingers, cold as it had been in the carriage, in the study, every time she had been close enough to feel his temperature. "The binding begins," the officiant announced. An older wolf with silver in his beard and kindness in his eyes. "We gather to witness the union of Alpha King Kalen of Valdrin and Solène Ashford, a binding not of the bond, but of words, a contract of loyalty and protection." Solène felt the weight of the phrasing, not of the bond. They were being bound by vows, not by the mate connection. The entire room knew this was a political arrangement, nothing more. "Before we proceed," the officiant continued, "are there any who would speak against this union?" Silence. Then a voice rang out from the back of the hall. "I would speak." Solène's breath caught. Marin stepped forward, her smile firmly in place. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," Marin said, bowing to Kalen. "I speak not against the union, but to ensure the king enters it with full knowledge of his bride." Kalen's expression did not change. "Speak then." "Solène Ashford bears the void mark," Marin announced, her voice carrying to every corner. "She was betrothed to Alpha Ronan Blackwood 3 years ago. On the night of their bonding ceremony, the mate bond itself shattered. It rejected her so violently that it burned the mark into her flesh." Murmurs rippled through the small crowd. "She is cursed," Marin continued, "unable to form a true bond, unable to be claimed, unable to give the king what a Luna should give." Her eyes glittered with malice. "Does His Majesty truly wish to bind himself to a wolf that even the moon goddess rejected?" The hall went silent. Solène stood frozen, unable to breathe. This was it. The moment the dream shattered. The moment Kalen realized his mistake and cast her back to the fate she had barely escaped. But the king did not look at Marin. He looked at Solène. "Is this true?" he asked quietly. "You bear this mark?" "Yes," Solène whispered. "There was no point in lying." "I should have told you myself, Your Majesty. I tried, but you said you already knew what I was." "I knew you were void-marked. I did not know the specifics." His eyes held hers, searching for something. "Do you believe you are cursed?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked what she believed. "I do not know what happened that night," Solène said slowly. "I was 18. I thought I loved him. I thought the bond would form as it should. But when the moment came, something inside me rejected it. Rejected him." She swallowed hard. "I have never understood why, but I know that I did not choose it. I did not want it. I have spent 3 years being punished for something I cannot explain." A heavy pause. Kalen turned to face Marin, and something in his expression made the woman take an involuntary step back. "I was not addressing you," he said, his voice soft as falling snow and twice as cold. "I was addressing my Luna, the only voice in this hall that I am interested in hearing." Marin's face went white. "Your message is delivered," Kalen continued. "You may return to Thornhaven and inform Alpha Ronan that his objection has been noted and disregarded. But Your Majesty, you are dismissed." The 2 words carried the weight of mountains. Marin opened her mouth as if to argue, then thought better of it. She bowed stiffly and retreated from the hall. The doors closed behind her with a heavy thud. Solène stared at the king, something warm and unfamiliar blooming in her chest. He had defended her. Publicly. Without hesitation. "Continue the ceremony," Kalen said to the officiant. The binding proceeded. Vows were spoken. A contract was signed. No rings were exchanged, no marks given. But by the end of it, Solène was legally, officially, the Luna of Valdrin. When it was over, the advisors approached to offer congratulations that sounded more like condolences. Solène accepted them with numb politeness, her mind still spinning from everything that had happened. As the hall emptied, she found herself standing alone with the king. "Your Majesty," she said quietly. "Thank you." Kaelin looked at her with that same unreadable expression. "For what?" "For defending me. For not casting me aside when you learned the full truth." She hesitated, then added, "That was kind of you." Discomfort crossed his features. Or perhaps confusion. "Kindness had nothing to do with it," he said. "You are my Luna now. Attacks against you are attacks against me. I simply defended my own interests." Solène studied him for a long moment. "Is that what you tell yourself?" His jaw tightened. "It is the truth." "Then I thank you for your interests," she said softly. "Whatever you choose to call them, they are more than anyone has shown me in a very long time." The king said nothing. But as Solène turned to leave, she caught something in his scent. Just a flicker, barely there beneath the winter cold. Warmth, faint as a candle in a snowstorm, but present, real. She filed it away and did not mention it. Later that evening, Solène found herself in the castle gardens, desperately needing air that did not feel quite so heavy with expectation. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Footsteps behind her made her turn. It was Marin, still in the castle despite being dismissed hours ago. "Congratulations," Marin said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Luna of Valdren, who could have imagined?" "What are you still doing here?" Solène asked quietly. "Leaving in the morning, but I wanted to speak with you first. Privately." Marin stepped closer, her smile sharpening. "He seems to care for you, does he not? Defending you before the entire court. How romantic." "He was defending his interests. Nothing more." "Is that what he told you?" Marin laughed softly. "Perhaps. But I wonder how long that defense will last when he learns the full truth." Ice crept through Solène's veins. "What are you talking about?" "The bonding ceremony. 3 years ago." Marin's eyes glittered in the fading light. "You think it was your fault, do you not? That something inside you rejected Ronan? That is what everyone believes. Everyone is wrong." Marin leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Ronan thinks his secret died with that witch he hired. He does not know I was watching that night. He does not know I saw everything." Solène's breath caught. "You are lying." "Am I?" Marin tilted her head, studying her with cruel amusement. "I have carried this secret for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to use it. And now that you have bound yourself to the most powerful wolf in existence, the moment has finally come. What do you want?" Marin's smile widened. "For now, nothing. I simply wanted you to know that I have you, completely." She stepped back, spreading her hands. "Enjoy your new life, Luna. Build your hopes as high as you like. Because when I decide to tear them down, there will be nothing left but ashes." She turned and walked away into the darkness. Solène stood alone in the garden, her hands trembling, the setting sun bleeding red across the sky. 3 years of believing she was broken, 3 years of carrying shame that was not hers. And now Marin claimed to know the truth. What really happened that night? Who was truly responsible? And what would happen when the Alpha King discovered that his Luna was hiding something even she did not understand? The Luna presentation was a tradition older than the kingdom itself. Every Luna who had ever ruled Valdren had stood before the gathered packs on the morning after their binding. They had shown their faces, demonstrated their strength, and proved themselves worthy of standing beside the king. Solène had been dreading it since she learned it existed. Now, dressed in a gown of silver and white that made her feel like a ghost, she stood behind the great doors of the throne room and listened to the crowd beyond. They had come from every territory. Alphas and their mates, nobles and warriors, curious wolves who wanted to see what kind of Luna their cold king had chosen. The rumors had already spread. Void-marked, bond-shattered, the worthless wolf of Thornhaven. Solène could hear snippets of conversation through the heavy wood. They say she cannot bond at all? What kind of Luna cannot bond? Perhaps that is why he chose her. Everyone knows the king is incapable of attachment. But to present her to the kingdom? To expect us to bow to a cursed wolf? A hand touched her elbow. She turned to find an older woman beside her, dressed in the simple gray of the castle staff. Her eyes were kind. "I am Yara," the woman said. "His Majesty's head of household. He asked me to escort you. He is not coming himself? He awaits you inside, at the throne." Yara studied her with an expression Solène could not read. "You are afraid." It was not a question. "I have spent 3 years being called worthless," Solène admitted quietly. "Now I am expected to walk into a room full of wolves, who already hate me, and pretend I deserve to stand beside a king." Yara was silent for a moment. Then she said, "May I tell you something about His Majesty?" Solène nodded. In the 15 years I have served him, I have never seen him defend anyone, not his advisors, not his allies, not even his own bloodline." Yara's voice softened. "Yesterday, he defended you before the entire binding assembly. Whatever you believe about yourself, the king does not agree with it." Something loosened in Solène's chest. Just a fraction. "Thank you," she whispered. "Save your thanks," Yara said, a hint of warmth in her voice. "The presentation begins. Walk straight. Do not bow. You are Luna now. You bow to no one except the king, and only in private." The doors began to open. Light flooded in, along with the sound of hundreds of wolves turning to watch. Solène felt every eye like a physical weight, pressing against her skin, searching for weakness. She walked forward. The throne room was vast, pillars of dark stone rising toward a ceiling lost in shadow. The crowd lined both sides of a central aisle, leaving a clear path to the raised dais where 2 thrones waited. Kaelin sat in the larger throne, dressed in formal black, his silver hair catching the light from the high windows. He watched her approach with those pale, unreadable eyes. Beside his throne, slightly smaller but no less grand, sat an empty seat. Her seat. Solène kept her spine straight, her gaze fixed ahead. She could feel the whispers following her like snakes through grass. Look at her. No marks at all. Not even a claim bite. He has not bonded her. Perhaps he cannot. The void marked cannot be claimed. She is defective. She reached the dais and climbed the steps. Kaelin rose from his throne and extended his hand. Cold. Always cold. But steady. He guided her to stand beside him, facing the crowd. "Wolves of Valdrin and the allied territories," Kaelin announced. His voice carried without effort, filling every corner of the vast room. "I present to you Solène, Luna of Valdrin, my bound partner, my queen." The hush that followed was deafening. Then a voice rang out from the crowd. "She bears no mark." Solène recognized the speaker. An alpha from one of the southern territories, thick-necked and aggressive, his eyes fixed on her with open contempt. "A Luna should bear her king's mark," the alpha continued. "This woman bears nothing. How can we accept a queen who is not truly claimed?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Solène felt her chest tighten. This was it. The moment everything fell apart. The moment Kaelin realized his mistake. But the king simply looked at the southern alpha with an expression of absolute indifference. "You question my Luna," Kaelin said quietly. "I question nothing, Your Majesty. I simply observe that tradition requires..." "Tradition." The word cut through the air like a blade. "You wish to lecture me on tradition." The alpha's face went pale. "Your Majesty, I meant no..." "The Luna of Valdrin is whoever I say she is." Kaelin's voice dropped, becoming something terrible. "She stands beside me. She wears my crown. She is mine. That is all the proof any wolf in this room requires." He turned to the crowd, and Solène saw every wolf shrink back from his gaze. "If anyone else wishes to question my choice," the king said softly, "they are welcome to challenge me directly. Here, now." Not a single wolf moved. "No?" Kalen tilted his head slightly. Then I believe the presentation is complete. He took Solenne's hand again and guided her to sit in the Luna's throne. The crowd dropped into bows, every head lowered, every knee bent. Solène sat frozen, overwhelmed. He had done it again, defended her without hesitation, crushed any challenge before it could take root. Why? Why did he keep protecting someone he claimed to care nothing about? As if sensing her confusion, Kalen glanced at her. And for just a moment, something shifted in those pale eyes. Something almost like warmth. Then it was gone, replaced by the usual ice. But Solène had seen it, and she was beginning to understand that the cold king of Valdren was not nearly as frozen as he pretended to be. Later that night, after the endless receiving lines and formal introductions, Solène finally escaped to the gardens. The stars were bright overhead, the air sharp with the scent of pine and snow. She breathed deeply, trying to settle her racing thoughts. Footsteps approached. She turned to find Kalen walking toward her, still in his formal clothes, his expression unreadable. "You should be inside," he said. "It is cold." "I needed air." She studied him in the starlight. "Why do you keep defending me?" "I told you. Attacks against you are attacks against me. And yet you hold my hand in front of the entire kingdom. You guide me to my throne as if I were precious." She stepped closer to him. "Those are not the actions of a man protecting his interests. Those are the actions of someone who cares." Kalen went very still. "You are mistaken," he said quietly. "Am I?" "I am not capable of caring. Not in the way you mean." His voice was flat. "It would be unwise for you to expect more from me than I can give." Solène looked at him for a long moment, at the tension in his jaw, the careful blankness of his expression, the way his hands were clenched at his sides. "What happened to you?" she whispered. "What made you this way?" Something fractured in his eyes, just for a moment. Then the ice closed over it again. "Good night, Luna," he said. "I will see you at the morning council." He turned and walked away. Solène watched him go, her heart aching with questions she did not know how to ask. What was he hiding beneath all that cold? And why did she feel, with growing certainty, that the answer would change everything? 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of formal dinners and council meetings and the endless performance of being Luna. 3 weeks of standing beside a king who protected her publicly and avoided her privately. 3 weeks of wondering why her pulse jumped every time he entered a room. Solène told herself it was gratitude, nothing more. But gratitude did not explain the way her wolf stirred when his scent reached her. Gratitude did not explain the dreams that woke her in the middle of the night, breathless and aching. Gratitude did not explain the disappointment that settled in her chest every time he left a room without looking at her. She was falling for him. The realization came on a quiet evening when she was reading in the library, and he walked in without noticing her. He had removed his formal jacket, rolled his sleeves to his elbows, and his silver hair was disheveled as if he had been running his hands through it. He looked exhausted, human, vulnerable, and beautiful. So beautiful, it made her chest hurt. He selected a book from the shelf, turned to leave, and finally saw her sitting in the corner. They stared at each other. "I did not realize you were here," he said. "I can leave." "No, stay." He hesitated, then added, "If you wish." Solène nodded. He settled into a chair across from her and opened his book. They read in silence for nearly an hour. It should have been awkward. Instead, it felt peaceful, natural. When Kalen finally rose to leave, he paused by her chair. "You are settling in well," he said quietly. "The staff speak highly of you. They are kind. They are honest. There is a difference." He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable passing through his features. "Good night, Solène." It was the first time he had used her name. The sound of it in his voice did something dangerous to her heart. After that night, things began to change. He sought her out more often. Small moments that accumulated into something larger. He found her in the library, in the gardens, in the quiet corners of the castle where she went to escape the weight of being Luna. They talked about politics, about history, about the challenges of ruling a kingdom full of wolves who feared and resented change. He asked her opinions and actually listened to her answers. "You think the border patrols should be reorganized?" he asked one evening, genuine curiosity in his voice. "I think you have too many wolves in the south and not enough in the east. The eastern territories are where the rogue attacks have been increasing." Kaylin studied her. "You have been reading the patrol reports." "I am Luna. I should understand my kingdom." Pride stirred behind his expression, almost a smile. "You continue to surprise me," he said quietly. Solène felt warmth bloom in her chest. "Is that a good thing?" "I have not decided yet." But he was almost smiling when he said it. The night everything changed began like any other. Solène was in her chambers, preparing for bed, when a knock came at her door. She opened it to find Kaylin standing in the hallway, his expression tense. "May I come in?" She stepped aside, her breath catching. He entered and stood awkwardly in the center of her room, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked uncertain. It was the most human she had ever seen him. "The council has been asking about heirs," he said finally. "They believe it is time we produced them." Solène's throat tightened. "Oh. I told them I would discuss it with you first." He met her eyes. "I will not force anything upon you, Solène. If you are not ready, if you do not wish." "I knew this was part of our arrangement," she said quietly. "I agreed to it." Agreeing to terms in a contract is different from agreeing in practice. His jaw tightened. "You should have a choice." The fact that he cared about her choice made something crack open in her chest. "I choose to fulfill my duties as Luna," she said. "And—" she hesitated, then admitted the truth. "I choose you." Kaylin went very still. "You do not know what you are choosing," he said, his voice rough. "Then show me." For a long moment he simply looked at her. Then he crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her. His mouth was cold against hers, cold, but gentle, careful, as if she were something precious he was afraid to break. His hands came up to cup her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones with a tenderness that made her eyes sting. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "I should warn you," he said quietly. "I am not like other wolves. My body runs cold. My touch will not warm you." "I have been cold my entire life," Solène whispered. "I do not need warmth. I need you." Something broke behind his eyes, something that had been holding itself together for a very long time. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Solène stopped thinking. They came together slowly, carefully. He gave her every opportunity to pull away, and she gave him none. His skin was ice against her heat, and the contrast created sensations she had never imagined possible. Every touch sent shivers racing through her. Every kiss left her wanting more. When he finally lay beside her afterward, his arm wrapped around her waist, his cold chest pressed against her back, Solène felt something she had not felt in years. "Safe. Stay," she whispered. "Please. Just tonight." She felt him hesitate, felt the tension coil through his body. "I should not," he said quietly. "Why?" A long pause. "Because if I stay," he finally admitted, "I will want to stay again tomorrow. And the night after that. And eventually, I will want things I cannot have." Solène turned in his arms to face him. In the darkness, she could barely make out his features, but she could feel him. Feel the way his heart was racing despite his cold skin. "What things?" she asked softly. He did not answer, but he stayed. And when she woke in the morning to find him still there, still holding her, still watching her with something terrifyingly close to tenderness, Solène knew she was in trouble. Because she was not just falling for the cold king of Aldrin, she had already fallen. And she had no idea how to survive the landing. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Solène's life. Kaylin came to her every night. Sometimes they talked for hours before falling into bed. Sometimes they barely made it through the door before his hands were on her. Sometimes they simply lay together in the darkness, breathing in sync, needing nothing more than each other's presence. He was different in private. The ice melted when they were alone, revealing something warm and wounded beneath. He laughed at her jokes, quiet huffs of amusement that made her feel like she had accomplished something miraculous. He told her stories about his childhood, about the burden of being king, about the loneliness that had defined his entire existence. And she told him about herself, about Thornhaven, about Ronan, about the night her world had shattered and she had never understood why. "You truly do not know what happened?" Kaelin asked one night, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her shoulder. "I remember standing at the altar. I remember the moment the bond was supposed to form. And then," she shuddered. "Pain. Burning. Like something inside me was being ripped apart. When it was over, the mark was there, and Ronan was calling me cursed." Kaelin was quiet for a long moment. Bond rejection does not happen without cause. Something must have triggered it. "I have spent 3 years trying to understand what. Perhaps it was not something you did." His voice was careful. "Perhaps it was something he did." The thought had never occurred to her. Not once. "What do you mean?" "Bonds can be corrupted, Solène, poisoned before they form. If someone interfered with the ceremony..." He stopped himself, his jaw tightening. "Forgive me. I am speculating without evidence." But the seed had been planted. Someone interfered. Someone poisoned the bond before it could form. Marin's words echoed in her memory. "Ronan thinks his secret died with that witch he hired. He does not know I was watching that night. He does not know I saw everything. What if the rejection had not been her fault at all?" Solène pushed the thought away. She could not deal with it now. Not when everything else in her life was finally going right. Because it was going right. For the first time in years, she was happy. Truly happy. And then she discovered she was pregnant. The healer confirmed it on a bright morning when the snow was falling gently outside. Solène sat frozen in her chair, her hand pressed to her stomach, unable to process the words. "Congratulations, Luna," the healer said warmly. "The kingdom will be overjoyed." A child. Kaelin's child. Joy and terror warred in her chest. That evening, she waited until they were alone in her chambers to tell him. Kaelin had just arrived, was just reaching for her when she stopped him. "I need to tell you something," she said. He went still, his expression guarded. "What is it?" "I am pregnant." A hush fell between them. Then Kaelin's hand moved, slowly, reverently, to rest against her stomach. His palm was cold through the fabric of her dress, but his touch was so gentle it made her eyes sting. "You are certain?" he whispered. The healer confirmed it today. For a long moment he did not move, did not speak. Just stood there with his hand on her stomach, staring at nothing. Then he looked up at her, and Solène saw something she had never seen in his eyes before. Fear. "Kaelin, what is wrong?" He shook his head slightly as if clearing it. "Nothing. Nothing is wrong." But his voice was strained, his scent sharp with something she could not identify. "You are lying to me." "I am not..." He stopped, took a breath. "I am overjoyed, Solène, truly. A child is everything I have hoped for." "Then why do you look terrified?" He pulled away from her, turning toward the window. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. "There are things I have not told you," he said quietly. "About my family, about why I am the way I am." Solène felt her throat constrict. "Tell me now." "I cannot." "Why not?" "Because telling you would put you in danger, and I will not." His voice cracked. "I will not risk you. I will not risk our child." She crossed the room to stand behind him, close enough to feel the cold radiating from his body. "Whatever it is," she said softly, "we will face it together. That is what mates do." He turned sharply. We are not mates. We are bound by contract, not by bond. I have never marked you. I have never claimed you fully. Why? The question burst out of her, raw and desperate. Why will you not claim me? You come to me every night. You hold me. You. She stopped, her voice breaking. Sometimes when you look at me, I think you might actually care. But then you pull away and remind me that this is just an arrangement, that you will never love me. Kaylin's face went pale. Solen, I am tired of the arrangement, she said, tears streaming down her face. I am tired of pretending. I love you, Kaylin. I love you, and I do not know how to stop. And I need to know if there is any chance you feel the same. The words hung in the air between them. Kaylin looked at her with an expression of such anguish that it stole her breath. Please, she whispered. Just tell me the truth, even if it hurts. He closed his eyes, drew a shuddering breath. The truth, he said quietly, is that I have loved you since the moment you thanked me for kindness I was not trying to give. The truth is that every night I spend with you makes me want things I swore I would never want again. The truth is that you are the only warmth I have felt in 15 years, and I am terrified. His voice broke. I am terrified of what will happen when you realize what loving me will cost you. Solen stared at him. You love me? Yes. The word came out like a confession, like a wound. I love you, Solen, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. Joy exploded in her chest, overwhelming and absolute. She stepped forward, reaching for him. Then why are you afraid? Why? He caught her hands before she could touch him. And she saw it then. The frost forming at his collar, the ice crystallizing along his jawline, the cold spreading from within. Kaylin? Her voice pitched with terror. What is happening? His legs buckled. She caught him, but his weight dragged them both to the floor. He was convulsing, his body racked with tremors, frost spreading across his skin like a living thing. No, no, no. Solen pulled him into her lap, pressing her warm hands against his frozen face. Kaylin, stay with me, stay with me. His eyes flickered open, pale as winter storms and full of pain. The curse, he gasped, on my bloodline, on every king of Valdrin. What curse? What are you talking about? His hand found hers, gripping weakly. If I truly love someone, he whispered, if I admit it aloud, speak the words into being. His breath rattled in his chest. My heart turns to ice. I freeze from within. His eyes met hers, desperate and fading. I die. Solen's world collapsed. No, no, that is impossible. We can fix this. We can... There is no cure. His voice was barely audible now. There has never been a cure. Every king who has loved has died for it. My father, his father, every male of the line for 12 generations. The ice was spreading faster now, crawling down his neck, across his chest. Do not die, Solen begged. Please, I just found you. I cannot lose you. Our child needs you. I need you. Kaylin's eyes fluttered closed. I'm sorry, he breathed. I should have told you. I should have warned you. But I wanted... His voice faded to nothing. I wanted to pretend, just for a little while, that I could be happy. His hand fell from her face. His body went still, and Solen screamed. Guards burst through the door within seconds of her screams. They found their Luna on the floor, cradling their dying king, her hands pressed uselessly against the ice spreading across his chest. The frost had reached his face now, crystallizing along his cheekbones, turning his lips blue. Help him! Solen screamed. Someone help him! But the guards just stood there, horror written across their faces. Get the healer! One of them finally managed. Get everyone! Move! They scattered, and within minutes the room was filled with bodies, healers who pressed their hands to Kaylin's chest and pulled back with frostbitten fingers, advisors who muttered prayers to the moon goddess, Yara, who knelt beside Solen and held her hand without saying a word. There must be something, Solen begged. Some treatment. Some cure. There is no cure, Luna. The head healer's voice was gentle but final. The curse on the Valdrin bloodline is absolute. Every king who has loved has died from it. His father, his grandfather, every male of the line for 12 generations. Then why did no one tell me? Why did no one warn me? Because His Majesty forbade it. Yara's grip tightened on her hand. He knew the risk. He tried to protect himself by choosing a Luna he believed he could never love, but even he could not have predicted. Her voice broke. He could not have predicted you. Selene stared down at Kaylin's frozen face. Even now, even dying, he was beautiful. And she had done this to him. Her love had done this. No. Something rebelled inside her. Some instinct, some certainty, some voice that refused to accept this ending. The curse was placed by magic, she said slowly. That means it can be broken by magic. The curse is ancient, Luna. The most powerful witches in history have tried to— I do not care what they tried. Solene's voice hardened. I care about what they missed. She looked down at Kaylin, at the frost spreading inexorably toward his heart. She had hours, maybe less, but she would not let him die. Not without a fight. Keep him alive, she commanded. Whatever it takes. I will return. Luna, where are you going? Selene was already on her feet, already moving toward the door. To find the truth. She rode through the night, pushing her horse harder than she had ever pushed anything. The cold wind cut through her cloak, but she barely felt it. All she could feel was the clock ticking in her chest, counting down the moments until Kaylin's heart stopped completely. Marin had said she knew the truth. Marin had said she knew who was truly responsible for the shattered bond. If anyone had answers, it was her. Selene found her at a way station 3 hours from Valdrin, preparing to return to Thornhaven. The shock on Marin's face when Selene burst through the door was almost satisfying. Luna. Marin recovered quickly, her expression smoothing into that familiar false pleasantness. What an unexpected visit. Is something wrong? The king is dying. Anticipation stirred in Marin's eyes, not surprise. How tragic, Marin said. Though I suppose it was inevitable. Everyone knows the Valdrin curse. Any king foolish enough to fall in love. Selene crossed the room in 3 strides and slammed Marin against the wall. You will tell me what you know, she said, her voice deadly calm. You will tell me everything. And then perhaps I will let you live. For the first time, real fear crossed Marin's face. I do not know what you— 3 years ago, you told me you knew what really happened at my bonding ceremony. You said you knew who was truly responsible. Selene's grip tightened. Tell me. Now. Marin's composure cracked completely. It was Ronan, she gasped. All of it. He planned everything. What did he plan? Your family. Your bloodline. Marin's words tumbled out in a rush. Ronan discovered something about your ancestry. Your great-grandmother was a healer wolf, one of the old bloodlines, the ones who could purify corruption, break curses, heal what magic had damaged. The power passes through the female line. Solene's grip loosened slightly, shock rippling through her. What? Ronan wanted that power for his heirs, but he could not control it if you were truly bonded to him. A real mate bond would give you equal standing, equal power. So he found a witch. Paid her to poison the bonding ceremony. The world tilted beneath Solene's feet. The bond was meant to shatter, Marin continued. It was designed to. And when it did, when it burned the mark into your flesh, Ronan made sure everyone believed you were the broken one, the worthless one, the wolf too damaged to ever bond again. But I am not damaged, Selene whispered. No. Marin's voice was bitter now. You are not. Your wolf rejected the corrupted bond because your bloodline recognized the poison. You were not broken that night, Selene. You were protected. Your own power saved you from being bound to a monster. Selene released her, stepping back, her mind racing. She was not void-marked. She was not cursed. Her bond had not shattered because she was worthless. It had shattered because she was strong. Strong enough to reject corruption. Strong enough to survive. Strong enough to... The Valdrin curse, she breathed. It was placed by a witch, was it not? Marin nodded slowly. Generations ago. A witch who wanted to ensure the kings of Valdrin could never find true happiness, could never be strengthened by love. Corruption. Solenne's heart was pounding now. The curse is corruption. Magic designed to destroy love, to poison bonds, to turn something beautiful into something deadly. Yes, but what does that... I rejected corruption once. Solenne looked at her hands, the hands that had held Kaelin, that had touched every part of him. My bloodline protects against poisoned magic, against curses designed to destroy. Understanding dawned on Marin's face, followed quickly by fear. You cannot be serious. You cannot possibly think, where is Ronan now? At Thornhaven. But Solenne, even if you are right, even if your bloodline can break curses, you would have to bond with the king fully, mark him, claim him completely, and you have never... I have never bonded because every bond offered to me was poison. Solenne turned toward the door. Kaelin is not poison. He is the only thing in my life that has ever been pure. She paused at the threshold. You will remain here until I send for you. You will testify to everything you have told me tonight. And then the council will decide your fate. She looked back at Marin with cold eyes. If you run, I will find you, and I will not be merciful. She rode back to Valdrin faster than she had come. Kaelin was worse when she arrived. The ice had spread across his entire torso, creeping down his arms, up his throat. His heartbeat was barely perceptible, a faint flutter beneath layers of frost. Luna. The head healer's face was grave. He has minutes. Perhaps less. Solenne knelt beside the bed, taking Kaelin's frozen hand in hers. Everyone out, she said quietly. Luna, we cannot leave you alone with... Everyone. Out. Now. They left. Solenne looked down at her husband, her king, the man she loved more than she had ever loved anything. His eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. The frost was reaching for his heart. I know you can hear me, she whispered. I know you are still fighting. So listen to me, Kaelin. I am going to save you. I am going to break this curse. His eyelids flickered but did not open. They told me my whole life that I was broken, that my bond was shattered, that I was incapable of claiming or being claimed. She leaned closer, pressing her forehead to his frozen cheek. They were wrong. About all of it. I am not broken. I am exactly what you need. She pulled back and looked at his throat, at the place where a claiming mark would go. Her whole life, she had been told she could not do this, could not bond, could not claim, could not love without destroying. But Ronan had lied. Marin had lied. Everyone who had ever called her worthless had been wrong. The mark between her shoulder blades, the one she had carried as proof of her brokenness, had never been a curse at all. It was a scar of survival, evidence that her blood had rejected poison, and now she was going to prove it. I love you, Solenne said clearly. I claim you as mine, my husband, my king, my mate. She lowered her mouth to his throat and bit. The moment her teeth broke his skin, she felt it. Power surging through her like nothing she had ever experienced. Not her own power, but something older, something inherited, something that had been sleeping in her blood for generations, waiting for this moment. The bond snapped into place with a force that stole her breath. It was not like she had imagined. Not gentle or gradual. It was a flood, a wildfire, a storm breaking over her soul. She felt Kaelin, not just his body beneath her, but his heart, his mind, his essence, every wall he had ever built, every fear he had ever carried, every moment of loneliness and pain and desperate, desperate hope. And beneath all of it, his love for her. Vast and terrifying and absolutely unwavering, heat erupted from her core, pouring through the bond, pouring into him. She felt the ice resisting, felt the curse fighting back, felt the ancient magic that had bound his bloodline for generations, struggling against something it had never encountered before. A bond that could not be corrupted. A love that could not be poisoned. A wolf strong enough to reject the darkness. The ice cracked. Selene felt it shatter, felt the frost retreat, felt warmth rushing through Kaelin's body for the first time in 15 years. His heartbeat strengthened beneath her palm. His breathing deepened. Color flooded back into his face. His eyes flew open. "Selene," he gasped. She pulled back, her vision blurring with tears, and looked at him. The ice was gone. Completely gone. His skin was warm beneath her hands, warm in a way she had never felt it. And when he looked at her, there was no pain in his eyes, no fear, just wonder. "You saved me," he breathed. "How?" "You are not the only one with secrets." She laughed through her tears. "I will explain everything, but first." She touched the mark on his throat. Her mark. Proof that he was hers. "First, I need you to tell me you are all right." Kaelin sat up slowly, touching his chest where the ice had been. His hand found hers and pressed it over his heart. Beneath her palm, she felt it beating. Strong. Steady. Warm. "Better than all right," he said quietly. "I am alive. I am warm. And I am—" He stopped, something cracking in his expression. "I am free. The curse is gone. I can feel it. There is nothing inside me anymore but—" "But?" He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "Love," he whispered. "Just love. For you. For our child. For everything I never thought I would have." They held each other for a long time. Later, when they had both stopped shaking, when the healers had confirmed what Selene already knew, when the entire castle had learned that their king was alive and their Luna had performed the impossible, they sat together in his study, and she told him everything. About Ronan, about Marin, about the poisoned bond and the lie she had believed for 3 years, about the bloodline she had never known she carried. Kaelin listened without interruption. When she finished, his expression was thunderous. "Ronan will answer for this," he said quietly. "For what he did to you. For every year you spent believing you were worthless." "Yes." Selene touched his hand. "But not tonight. Tonight. I just want to be with you." His expression softened. He pulled her into his lap and kissed her, warm and slow and full of promise. "Tonight," he agreed. "Tomorrow, we bring him to justice." 6 months later, Selene stood in the castle gardens, watching the sun set over the mountains. So much had changed. Ronan Blackwood sat in a prison cell, stripped of his title, his territory divided among alphas who would actually serve their people. Marin's testimony had ensured his conviction. In exchange, she had been exiled rather than executed, banished to the far territories where no one knew her name. The curse on the Valdrin bloodline was broken completely. Not just for Kaelin, but for all future generations. Their children would never know the cold that had plagued their father, would never fear love. Footsteps behind her made her turn. Kaelin walked toward her across the garden, their daughter in his arms. Little Era, born 3 months ago, had arrived 2 weeks early with her father's silver hair and her mother's dark eyes. She was sleeping peacefully against his chest, one tiny fist curled around his finger. "She wanted her mother," Kaelin said, wonder threading through his voice. "Or perhaps I just wanted to find you both." Selene smiled and leaned into him, careful not to disturb their daughter. His arm came around her shoulders, warm and strong. She touched her belly, where new life had just begun to grow. The healer had confirmed it only yesterday. A son, if the old traditions of scent reading held true. "Do you remember what you told me the night we met?" she asked quietly. "You said you would never love me." Kaelin pressed a kiss to her temple. "I was a fool." "You were afraid." "I was both." He looked down at Era, at the miracle sleeping in his arms. "But you saved me anyway. Saved all of us." Selene thought about everything that had led to this moment. The auction where she had been called worthless. The king who had chosen her for all the wrong reasons, the love that had grown between them despite every barrier they had built. "You saved me too," she said softly. "You looked at me when no one else would. You defended me when no one else cared. You gave me a home when I had nothing." "I gave you a contract," Kalen corrected, a hint of his old wryness in his voice. "You turned it into a family." Selene laughed, her eyes stinging with happy tears. She had stood before her pack 3 years ago and been called worthless, void-marked, cursed. She had believed them, had accepted their cruelty as truth. But she was not worthless. She was Luna of Valdrin, mother of the air, breaker of an ancient curse, and beloved, truly beloved by the man who had once sworn he could never love. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing me." Kalen tilted her face up and kissed her, gentle and warm and full of everything they had built together. "Thank you," he murmured against her lips, "for choosing me back." Their daughter stirred between them, making a soft sound of contentment. The sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, and somewhere in the distance, wolves began to sing. It was the sound of a kingdom at peace. It was the sound of home.